Hello and welcome to Wolfman Gaming. This is my Uncharted 2 Crushing Difficulty walkthrough, and this is chapter 18, also known as Heart of Ice. And this chapter is also based a lot around platforming, just like chapter 17, but this, in my opinion, is a lot more fun and a lot more interesting. Because we are once again in true adventure game style heading into a giant contraption of doom. And here we have the first one coming up, and when you're climbing up this center pillar thingy mabob, you need to be a bit careful, because on my first attempt up this thing, I stayed a little bit too close to this pillar when it went back in. You need to keep your speed up because the segments of it will start contracting again. But when you climb up here, head to the left. Because on my first try, when that top segment went back into the wall, for some reason, I clipped on it and it pulled me off the wall and it was a kill state. So be wary of that, and once again, the platforming isn't quite cooperating, as it does sometimes in this game. We have an unfortunate camera angle. That's a problem I have with these games, when they fix the camera. Because 99% of the time you can move the camera around just as you very well please, but at times they focus it to get that right dramatic sensation. And then sometimes the game can troll you. In a level like this, it doesn't really matter because you have all the time in the world. But as I mentioned in my previous videos on chapter 13 and 14, it can cause a lot of trouble. And this thing coming up, this is one of those things that also reminds me is the wrong term, but it makes me think of the Tomb Raider games, or the remake and its sequel that came, was it last year? I wish we had seen more of these things in those games. I mentioned it before, but I think it's worth mentioning again, because they are called Tomb Raider. So you would expect Lara to spend a lot more time in tombs than she does. And I don't think they were bad games. I just don't think that they were so good as they could have been. Because the controls in those games in comparison to these Uncharted games were, in my opinion, a bit on the sluggish side. She was a bit heavy, which is never a good thing to say about a woman. But the controls could have been a bit better, and there could have been a lot more focus on tombs and the raiding of said tombs. But going into this part of the level, this is one of those parts that really remind me of the old Castlevania games. You know, in Castlevania there is almost always a level where you go up in the clock tower in your search for Dracula. And this reminds me a lot of those, with these giant cogwheels planning to crush you if you hang on for them too long. So I really like the... Let's try that again. I really like this part of the level. And I've actually the last week been playing a lot of Super Castlevania, because I picked up one of the SNES classics. And I came to a realization that when you think of those old games that you haven't played in 20 something years, you always think back about them, or of them, or whatever the correct term is, in kind of a pink haze. You watch your memories with your nostalgia glasses and think to yourself that, oh, those games were great in all aspects. But one thing you have a tendency to forget when you just think back on those games and you don't actually play them is how goddamn hard those games are. Because I've been playing the SNES Classic a lot. I played SNES a lot when I was growing up, and I've come to the realization now that I play them again that you may think that some modern games are unforgiving and hard, and they have nothing on the old 8-bit and 16-bit era. Because I tried Contra Free the other day. Used to play that a lot as a kid, me and a friend of mine. And we used to dominate on that game. I was never able to beat it on hard, but I could get through it on normal. Single player mode, playing on my own. Not too much trouble. And now when I tried it again, I couldn't get past the second level. Or at least not on my first attempt. I do plan to revisit that game again, because I have a score to settle. I was able to beat it when I was 12 years old, and I hope, with at least some practice, I will be able to beat it again. Because I've played hundreds of games since those days, and I'm not gonna get beaten by it. I'm kind of stubborn that way. I'm not the type of gamer that gives up after the first try. I may get frustrated, I may put down the controller and turn off the game for a few hours, but sooner or later I'm gonna return and I'm gonna sell the score and I'm gonna beat it. But getting back to Uncharted for a few seconds. Here we have a sort of funhouse-like puzzle platforming thing. Remember, if you ever go to amusement park, sometimes they have those elevators where the steps move up and down. There's always one person getting stuck on them, so they have to turn it off and they can climb down or up. And now we are going back to another cogwheel, and also in this level, during the end of it, we will once again go into combat with the Yetis. You know, the guy we ran into at the end of the previous level. But this time, that fight is timed. And that is quite interesting, because all you have to do in that combat sequence is try to stay alive and stay out of their way. And it's quite easy to do because you fight them in quite a big arena. But I'm not gonna get too far ahead of myself. Instead, we are gonna focus on this. And we are soon coming up to another little puzzle sequence. Because I think it's right around this corner. Yep. We have these platforms. If you step on the wrong platform, it will retract down into the ground and you will die instantly. So what you want to do is make a circular motion here around the right. Jump over to this one, get over to that one, jump over to this, and then over to Tenzin. And I also think that if you take too long, they will start retracting as well, so keep your pace up. And once again, even though this cave is hundreds of years old and contraptions are just as old, they still work flawlessly. Those pillars came out of the ground as soon as we stepped on two platforms. And now we're going into the fight. So first you pick up this rifle, and as soon as you pull a lever up here, you will initiate the fight, because elevator will start coming down from the roof. And all you have to do now is stay mobile. Never stand still. I like to stay over here on the left side because they come in from the right. They will throw those giant balls of stone at you. So keep an eye on them at all times. But you see the platform I'm waiting for is moving downwards. So you saw my mistake right there. I stood still and he hit me instantly with a rock. And then, wow, that was too close for comfort. But this is really easy. As you can see, just stay on your feet or keep your feet moving. And as soon as it comes down, jump over to it and you will go into a cutscene and one of them will jump over to the platform. So now we take our gun and just unload in his face. You may take one hit, but as long as you're quick, you will fire at him enough and he will die and you will beat chapter 18. So I want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in my next video. So until next time, this is the Wolfman signing off.